Here we are again in the continuing saga of this kilt. I didn't think I was going to be videoing so soon because normally this would be plain sailing from here. You know, the aprons are, or sorry, the pleats are done, the inner apron shaped. Although looking at it, because I just flipped this around, this lower edge, the hem, had been on this side, and I was from that angle as I was shaping this inner apron, this A line, it looked okay, but from here it looks rather clunky. And this made me smile a bit because that's generally more a feature of wooden boat building where you'll look at something from every angle. And if you can't find ugly, then it's okay. But this looks to me a little ugly from this perspective. So after I finish this, I think I'm going to unpick this and play with it more and get a shape, a curve that I like better. Now, but the real point of this episode is that I managed to, after a lot of soul searching, I took off a piece 4 inches wide from the cloth of the inside apron, because had I not, well, I need it, but had I not done so, the inside apron would have come 2 inches closer to the center line, which is a little too thick. But there's a couple of reasons I need this, and I'll show the other two reasons in a minute. But it has given me a piece of cloth that's a patch, and it's as close. It's not a perfect match, but it's the one piece of cloth I've got. So I'm going to carefully sew this down. It's not going to be an invisible patch, but it's certainly not going to be visible from the outside. It'll only be visible when the kilt is off and laying on the bed or somewhere. Because normally when I do this, when I've robbed out a pleat and I have one of these extra cutouts, in common with these cutouts, I can often hide them under the lining. But in this case, the back part of the lining would have to come this far, which would look rather clunky, right? So I have two options. One of them is to sew in this patch and then lay across the canvas, which will support it up to there. And then this triangle patch, there's enough cloth there that it'll be stable, right? And neatly repaired, not invisible, but a neat repair visible from the inside. The other option is, and I've seen this done elsewhere, is that I basically create a box pleat on the inside of the kilt, because we notice that the, pardon me, this white line is the center of the inside apron, or the inner apron. Unusually, this inside pleat comes nearly to the center line, and I almost never do that. Generally, I shoot for 1/4 to 1/3, but often the design of the tartan will dictate where it goes, right? Sometimes too little, sometimes too much. I always go for too much, because what we're after is the function of this deep pleat. And normally the function of the deep pleat is, and well, in every case, it's so that the kilt drapes better when you're standing, that it moves better when you're walking. There's a little more instant modesty when you sit down because there's a reservoir of cloth there. But the other factor in this case is because this cloth is rather more light than the stuff I'm used to using with. I usually work with an 18-ounce cloth or the 22-ounce super heavy military cloth, almost like a tweed. This is what I would call what used to be called a dress tartan, not for its color palette, but because it's a bit lighter, right? It's the sort of kilt that one would wear with evening dress, or for the evening wear, not tramping across the moors with it, right? So, but one of the characteristics of that cloth is, again, it's light. So by putting a rather deeper pleat in both aprons, we're putting more cloth on the front of the individual, and therefore the front apron is going to drape a little bit better because there's more weight of cloth there. This stuff's so light that if you have a sporn strap, is going to make it bunch most unbecomingly. But the extra cloth will help prevent that, or at least it'll fight that. And also, quite frankly, with this extra cloth, because this is quite thin, with an extra bit of cloth, we have a little more capacity for modesty, right? Because you don't want a pokey bit in the middle of your kilt, to be crass. So yeah, rather than do a box pleat, which I have seen done elsewhere, I think I'm going to leave this rather more deep for the reasons I just stated. And if the customer doesn't like it, we'll discuss it and we'll come up with something new. But right now, as I consider this my best plan. So I'm going to carry on with this and once again report back when I've actually got something to say. Cheers.